Hello, it's Anne Marie with AM Astro. And today I want to look at Monday's full moon in Cancer. Um, and this full moon is related to, I don't want that. So here's the Cancer full moon. And I have this set for Washington, D.C. And you can see that it is conjunct Mars. Um, and it's across the first and seventh axis, which is us against them. The first house is us, and the seventh house is other. So it's ruled by the moon. Mars is in Cancer in its detriment, or no, I'm sorry, it's in its fall because it's exalted in Capricorn. So it's in its fall in Cancer and it is retrograde. So we've got the moon that is essentially dignified, being the ruler of Cancer, accidentally dignified by being in the first house, accidentally messed up by being conjunct Mars. And Mars is essentially messed up or debilitated because it's in its fall and because it's retrograde, but it's accidentally strengthened because it's in the first house. So we've got a mixed bag here, right? We've got the moon represents the people, and Mars in this chart represents the public opinion, the reputation, and it also represents the fifth house of self-expression or having fun or children or there's this word that I always forget. I can never remember what this freaking word is, but it's like when you place a bet, when you're gambling. What is that word? Taking chances. There's some word that I can never remember, but that's the fifth house as well. And so Mars represents those two things or rules those two things. And the moon obviously represents the people and this first house of the subject of what we're looking at. It's in opposition to the sun in Capricorn, 2359 or 24 basically degrees, in the seventh house of partnerships, and also open enemies. And then there is a trine to Uranus in the 11th house at 23 degrees also. And a sextile to Neptune. So we've got that going on. Jupiter is debilitated and retrograde in the 12th house in Gemini. So when a benefic is in the 12th house, it indicates that, good things could come. And it's in it's a semi-square to the ascendant, but it's not connecting with that full moon necessarily, but a semi-square to the ascendant. So it is in the conversation here. And it is also squaring the Venus-Saturn conjunction in the ninth house. This ninth house, there's a lot going on here in the ninth house of the judicial branch of government, and with Venus being in exaltation in Pisces, but accidentally debilitated by the conjunction with Saturn, and Neptune is co-present as well. The North Node has just entered into the nodal axis, has shifted into the Pisces Virgo signs. And so this is the beginning of a new phase for the nodal axis as it will then progress through the sign from the highest degree down to the lowest, because the nodal axis is in retrograde motion or reverse motion. So Cancer full moon. illuminating the body, illuminating the people. Um, with Mars there, there's an illumination of aggression and anger. Um, this anger, these emotions, because Cancer emotions, water, there's these emotions are, because Mars is retrograde and in its fall, it would indicate that these emotions could be based on things that are not um, are not what they seem to be, because there is also this free flowing trine to Neptune, and so it's like we're getting all worked up about something that we're not sure about, or we're getting set up for a disappointment, or we've already been disappointed and we don't know why. With that Neptune in Pisces and these other planets in Pisces as well, we're being filtered in this water, this emotion, to something that we're just not sure of, because it's Neptune and it's Pisces. And Mars is like, well, we're getting all upset about it anyway. We're getting angry. And the moon is saying that it's, it's the people, it's expanding, it's the full moon. So it's at this culmination point, and it's like, what is going to happen? What is going to happen? Now, this full moon, because lunar phases are like in a family, and we can go back and look at, there was a new moon that would have been around these degrees 18 months ago, because like the new moons are the seed point, and you can look at a gestational phase of a moon cycle when a new moon is seated at a point, and then 9 months later it's at a first quarter, and then 9 months after that it's at a full moon. So this is the full moon. So 18 months ago there was a new moon at or close to these degrees, and that's what I have here. July 17th 2023, and we have the new moon at 24:56, so it's within a 1 degree of this full moon that we're having. And if we look at this moon, whereas our current full moon is on the ascendant, this is on the midheaven. This is a very public thing as a new moon. So this is like there were seeds planted very publicly that are now being brought to fruition as our identity. Like these seeds were planted, our reputation, and now we're living that. So what could have come into, well, let's look a little bit more at the chart before we look at what could have been planted then. So it's Scorpio rising, which is ruled by Mars. So again, we remember that Mars is conjunct the full moon for Monday. So Mars is ruling the ascendant in this chart, and it's found in the 11th house of the congressional branch of government, but it's also hopes and dreams and networks and friends. So if we think about like the networks working together in Congress to pass legislation, this is the legislative branch, and Mars is in Virgo, so it doesn't have any essential dignities, but it is accidentally fortified because it's in the beneficial 11th house. Venus is approaching a conjunction with that Mars, but it is still in Leo. And it seems like Venus did a retrograde in Leo that year, so I can't remember if this would have been right around the time that she was stationing to go retrograde, because she's out ahead of the sun, so she's going to have to stop and go backwards. So but she's not far enough out. So I don't know. What am I mixing up 23 with 22? The Summer of Love. When was this? Maybe that was a long time ago. I could be totally wrong. So anyway, let's look at what else is going on. Pluto is at the 29th degree of Capricorn, and now it's currently at the first degree of Aquarius. So it has moved into Aquarius. And the full moon now today is in a trine to this Uranus, which is a little further on. And here we have the sextile. So if we look at the headlines of July 17th, 2023, to see what might have been going on in world news, one of the things that I saw when I looked at this that I thought was interesting was this Trump and allies forge plans to increase presidential power in 2025. Now, I don't remember hearing about Project 2025 in 2023, or it wasn't a part of my consciousness, I don't think, until when there was that awards. I can't remember if it was like the music awards or one of the acting awards, where that woman like used her acceptance speech to alert everyone to the evils of Project 2025. And I don't think that was in 2023. I think it was in 2024. So I found it interesting that this was in the headlines when this seed was planted of the new moon at this degree. That is now the full moon. The other things in the news are, can Britain fix its health services, riots in France, how a vast demographic shift will reshape the world, 2 theories of what I'm getting wrong, Black Sea grain deals hang in the 11th hour, alcohol poisonings rise in Iran, excuse me, Netanyahu released from hospital after undergoing tests, fires, look at that, we've got fires for sure, not in Phoenix, but in LA, flash flooding in Philadelphia, DeSantis sheds we don't hear about DeSantis anymore, right? We don't have, he's gone. Biden's final order on Kennedy files leaves some still wanting more. Biden with sluggish small donations waits for liberal energy to rise. We must go faster. Yellen says rich nations must speed debt relief. Banana Republic wants to outfit your home. Pay to rise as much as 40% in deal reached by United and pilots. As Iraq tries to chill critics, its newest target is social media. Electric vehicles powering homes during blackouts. AI wrote a housing bill. Critics say it's not intelligent. I thought that said Alcatraz. So yeah, so Project 2025 was the first one on here. New York has $1.1 billion to fight flooding. Will it be enough? So hearing words of flooding again. Labor Day looms as crisis point in Hollywood stalemate. So that was the writer's strike. How the Hollywood strikes could affect fall festivals and Oscar season. Mission Impossible for Tom Cruise meeting Hollywood expectations. So, you know, obviously, LA is in the news right now with the fires. I just feel so bad for that. That's just a mess. I mean, changing the demographic completely. I was looking up one of my boss's associates, and I saw a tape of the news crew driving down one street, which is just one street over from where this gentleman lives. So their house has been destroyed. It's just, there's so many houses that have been destroyed. Jane Birkin passes. So yeah, so those are the headlines for this seeding point of 2456 Cancer. And that Project 2025 is now being brought full focus into our identity as this full moon, the culmination point, the achievement of what seeds were planted. And so I wonder how that's going to come out. Now, what was interesting to me when I was looking at this and thinking about the Project 2025, I was thinking about in July. I don't if you listen to Susan Lin, her video today. She was talking about Vance and how Vance was put in by Peter Thiel. And I remember in July when the assassination attempt occurred on Trump, and I got a very clear hit that Peter Thiel was behind that to force Trump to pick Vance as his VP candidate. And he did within 24 hours of that. And I actually sent Susan Lynn, I sent her a text, which I never do. I have not communicated with her in years. And I was just like, oh my God. And I sent her a text and said, he picked he picked Vance because Peter Thiel, that was an ultimatum by Peter Thiel, like, we can shoot you, watch us. And so that's why Trump picked Vance. And so anyway, and so Susan Lynn is talking about Vance and the idea that she got a hit while she was talking about him because he had just had surgery for a deviated nasal septum, and she got a hit that he had a chip implanted, and that was just like, whoa. And she even got kind of the willies on it and didn't want to look at it any further because that was just, I mean, we're talking the Manchurian Candidate. And back in July of 2024, when the assassination attempt occurred and Trump picked Vance to run as his running mate, I did a video on the full moon that was occurring at that time, which would have been when the sun was in Cancer and the full moon was in Capricorn. And so I actually have pulled that up because, I mean, it was a complete opposition to what we're looking at right now, where, wait, this is today, sorry. So let me, no. Maybe I didn't pull it up. Shoot, let me see if I can find it. So that would have been a Capricorn full moon. No, that's not going to come out that way. So I remember looking at a yeah. Okay. Here we go. So so here we have the full moon on July 21st, 2024. And it was conjunct Pluto, mutually applying because Pluto was in retrograde going back into Capricorn for the last time before it went back into Aquarius in November. And this was conjunct the ascendant as well. And so we're looking at, so see, you've got the Cancer sun and the Capricorn full moon. And what we're dealing with on Monday is the Capricorn sun and the Cancer full moon, and both are conjunct the ascendant for the Washington, DC location. And And when I was looking at this, I wanted to compare it to Peter Thiel's chart, which we don't have a birth time for him, and we didn't back then either. But but I did discuss this because uh, his moon, based on this, is a 6 a.m., but I guess if you went to noon, I don't know why I have it at 6 a.m. If you went to noon, it would be at 29 degrees. And so at noon, it could be 6 degrees either way. So 29, so it could go all the way to 23 degrees, or it could go into Aquarius, because the moon moves 12 degrees a day. So, but this moon, his moon is conjunct this full moon now, and it was conjunct, or no, I'm sorry, it's conjunct the sun right now. It was conjunct the full moon in that July 21st, 2024. The sun. No, he's 29, sorry, 25. So his moon, yeah, and it was conjunct Pluto. Yeah, see. And and it was just kind of interesting to see what he's playing with here. And if, in fact, there is a situation where Trump does actually make it into office for however brief a time, and then something occurs, and then the Manchurian candidate gets put into office, and then what shall happen? Who will be running the country? The video that I shared back in July of 2024 was called "Who's Calling the Shots?" In a reference to the assassination attempt. And I think what Susan Lynn said is Trump thought at that time that they were going to be shooting blanks. And so sure enough, that they were not blanks. He was not aware that it was that somebody was actually going to die. And so, the idea is I think her guides are explaining that it's possible that the energy is still mutable at this point, that it could still change, but that it's possible, and that Biden is pushing for trying to keep this under control, and that Trump would step forward and say, I was unaware that they were in control of the election and that they were going to interfere with the results of the election. It was not me, not me, not me. And so he gives up his seat. Now, when the election first ended and was announced the way it was, I said at that time, I don't think I did any videos on it, but I posted on a few comments, where I felt pretty strongly that if our elections, I'm sorry, for August, I cut his hair. I don't know what I'm doing. I cut his hair, and now he looks poor bald man. My poor little man. Shaved head. I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But I said at that time, if in fact nefarious organizations interfered with the United States election and were successful, would we want to admit that? Because honestly, would we? I mean, that's a tough call right there, right? And so this notion that NATO's rep would come forward and say, no, 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 we need to voice this, and you all don't have to, but we will. That is far superior than the United States admitting that, yeah, you know what, our elections are not safe and somebody messed with them, i.e. Elon Musk and Peter Thiel and the tech bros. So I don't know. This full moon coming up is got some skankiness to it. It's got some just passive aggressive tendencies, high emotional drive. When we've got Mars conjunct the moon and Pluto conjunct the sun, and Mars is in fall and retrograde, and will come back to meet and oppose Pluto again. I think in April. Is that right? March, April. Yeah, it's we are living in some sketchy times for sure. So, yeah, I think the energy is mutable for sure. It's changeable. The fact though that this full moon is in a cardinal sign says that things can move quickly. So, batten down the hatches, buckle up, and let's see what happens. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.